everyone, welcome back. I'm going to be doing a review of Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard book. And this is sort of a middle grade book that I happened to pick up at a garage sale. And I'm going to go ahead and read the synopsis for you, because it describes it better than I think I can. Nobody Owens, known to his friends as Bod, is a normal boy. He would be completely normal if he didn't live in a sprawling graveyard, being raised and educated by ghosts, with a solitary guardian who belongs to neither the world of the living nor the dead. There are dangers and adventures in the graveyard for a boy, an ancient indigo man beneath the hill, a gateway to a desert leading to an abandoned city of ghouls, the strange and terrible menace of the Sleer. But if Bod leaves the graveyard, then he will come under attack from the man Jack, who has already killed Bod's family. Beloved master storyteller Neil Gaiman returns with a luminous new novel for the audience that embraced his New York Times bestselling modern classic Coraline. Magical, terrifying, and filled with breathtaking adventures, The Graveyard book is sure to enthrall readers of all ages. So this book begins with the terrifying events of the man Jack murdering Bod's, well, at the time we don't know, he's just the boy's family. He's kind of a rambunctious boy, and he keeps climbing out of his crib, and that particular night he happened to have done so, and sneaks out of the house and ends up in the neighboring graveyard. There he encounters some of the spirits that reside in the graveyard, one Mr. and Mrs. Owens. And shortly thereafter, the spirit of the boy's mother shows up, pleading to Mr. and Mrs. Owens to protect her boy, that there's someone coming to kill him. And they decide to step in and protect the child and eventually become his parents. So for them to keep the boy, they have to get permission from all the various residents of the graveyard, because in this particular case, it definitely takes a graveyard to raise a child, and they all have to kind of agree to it. And for him to be able to kind of live in this particular, setting, for lack of a better word, they give him the freedom of the graveyard, which gives him all sorts of abilities, you might say, which you find out as you read the book, and I'm not going to go into all those details. But there are limitations to what they can do. They, being spirits, can't provide him with food and clothing that he's going to need. But the guardian that's referred to in the description is one Silas. He is never really, you don't really know too much about him. Like I said, I was wondering throughout the whole book, is he alive? Is he dead? He's not buried in the cemetery. If he were, his spirit would be tied to that location. He would not be able to leave that particular graveyard. But he is able to move about. He's able to bring food and clothing back for the boy, and so that's sort of the agreement. They've all agreed to certain things that they will do for this child, to teach him, to provide him with food and comfort and safety and all of this. And eventually we will re-encounter the man Jack later in the story, but for the most part, each chapter in this book seems to be almost a little mini short story of its own, where he's encountering various characters, various spirits that reside in the graveyard, and different adventures. There's a young girl named Scarlet. She is a live girl who is visiting the area with her parents and happens to see the graveyard, wanders in there, and encounters Bod. And shortly thereafter, she visits quite a few times, but then her family moves to Scotland, and the boy doesn't see her for quite some time, until near the end of the book. And the girl all the time kind of thought maybe it was just an imaginary friend that she had, that Bod didn't really exist, but was shocked to see that he actually did. And so she's sort of drawn into the story and some of the dangers that Bod faces. I really enjoyed this book. I liked the characters. I really enjoyed Bod and watching him grow. He sort of walks this sort of line between the living and the dead, and trying to find his place in the world. And yeah, it's just very, very well written. I really, really enjoyed it. The book is filled with illustrations throughout that are just delightful. One of my favorites, let's see if I can find it, right here at the beginning. Yeah, that's this one here. You see him standing in the graveyard. He looks kind of bored. But they're really, really nicely done. Oh, it's not a good one. This was like a nice full-page one. And I happened to I was sort of reading this at the same time I was listening to it on audio. I happened to find an audio version of this through my local library, so I downloaded it to my iPod, and it is read by Neil Gaiman. If you ever have the chance to listen to his books when he's narrating them, definitely do so, because he does a phenomenal job. And I really, really enjoyed this book. just a few moments before I started filming this, I was looking at the cover, and it's the first time I've actually noticed it. I thought this was just, a tombstone, like a winged figure tombstone on the cover. And the more I looked at it, I finally noticed the face of the boy on the cover. And I'll just point it out. This is, let's see if I can do this. This is the top of his head, and then it curves down to his nose, and there's his lips and his chin. So he's sort of in profile looking that way. And, yeah, I thought that was super cool. A really, really clever design. I surprised the whole time. I never really noticed it. I thought it was literally just a tombstone on the cover. But definitely recommend picking up this book. Just about anything Neil Gaiman writes. It's worth reading or listening to. I gave this one 4 stars. And just because some of the pacing in the middle was a little bit slower, but overall definitely enjoyable and definitely worth picking up. Thanks for watching.